In a world already fraught with geopolitical tensions, a chilling possibility looms on the horizon: the specter of a nuclear war between the US and China. As the delicate balance of power becomes increasingly precarious and both nations engage in a deadly game of brinkmanship, the question arises: what could possibly push these nuclear giants to the point of unleashing the devastating force of atomic weapons? Stay tuned till the end to know about it. For decades, nuclear weapons have been largely peripheral to US-China relations, but the nuclear relationship is now growing more competitive as both countries pursue major programs to modernize their forces. China's efforts to strengthen its relatively small nuclear arsenal seem largely oriented towards improving survivability and do not appear to constitute a shift away from the country's long-standing no first use policy. Nevertheless, the improvements are provoking anxiety in Washington, which has long resisted acknowledging a state of mutual nuclear vulnerability with China. The core US concern is likely that improvements in China's nuclear arsenal, even if intended only to improve survivability, the US preference for damage limitation, largely through missile defense and counterforce capabilities, should not be taken to mean that the United States intends to start a nuclear war or that it believes it could emerge from a nuclear war unscathed. Rather, the likely US objective is to make China worry that if China starts a crisis or conflict that raises risk of nuclear escalation, the US will have a higher tolerance for bearing these risks than China will, because of the US's relatively greater ability to limit the damage that the US would suffer in a nuclear exchange. Advocates of damage limitation believe that such a capability could deter China from initiating the conflict in the first place, even conflict well below the nuclear threshold, and could endow the US with bargaining advantages in an effort to coerce China if a crisis or a war did break out. Rightly or wrongly, the US perceived China's ongoing improvements to survivability as threatening, especially when set against the backdrop of growing bipartisan concern about China's broader strategic intentions, and a conventional balance that is also becoming less favorable to the US and its allies. Understandably, however, China is also very unlikely to stop seeking a more survivable nuclear arsenal, even if its strategic aims are limited and its nuclear doctrine remains static. This paper explores the causes and implications of this emerging competition. The People's Republic of China harbors the intention and increasingly the capacity to reshape the international order in favor of one that tilts the global playing field to its benefit, even as the United States remains committed to managing the competition between our countries responsibly, it says. China has an estimated 350 nuclear warheads, according to an assessment by the Federation of American Scientists, compared with 5,977 in Russia's stockpile, against a US inventory of 5,428. However, the Pentagon believes that the Chinese force will grow to more than 1,000 warheads by 2030, making it a third major nuclear power. Daryl Kimball, the head of the Arms Control Association, expressed concern over whether the new language in the strategy document could herald a rethink about the size of the US arsenal. If we have to worry about two near-peer nuclear rivals by the year 2030, what does that mean for the number of targets in Russia and China that the president believes we need to hold at risk to deter those nuclear threats? And how does it affect the number of strategic nuclear weapons the US and the president believes that he needs to deploy? Kimball asked. They're basically looking at issues and questions that could lead to a larger number calculation, he said, adding, "It's not hard science. It could be more, it could be less. I would argue that even if China has twice the number of nuclear weapons, we still can and should reduce the total number of strategic nuclear weapons, because what we have is excessive of any reasonable calculation of what it takes to deter a nuclear attack." Let us know your views in the comment section, and don't forget to show your support by engaging with this video and sharing it with others. For more such content, do subscribe to our channel.